of the years. In Surah 32, God says that certain people have no idea how much joy and happiness await them. And we have no idea how fortunate we are, but 50 years from now, the future generations will realize how fortunate we are. We are the pioneers of something that is very special. About 50 years ago, for example, God's miracles through His messengers existed without any proof. And even now, our generation, excluding the pioneers that we have become, you go to them and say, Moses threw down the staff and it became a snake. And they say, sure. Oh yeah, sure. The unbelievers. Even the believers have doubts. You tell them Jesus revived the dead. And say, oh, maybe he just fainted or something, or he was just, he was sick or something and he came back to life. They do not believe those miracles. But now, God gives us the first tangible evidence that when Moses threw down the staff, it became a snake. Because what we have, and turns out that this has been always the case in the scriptures, in the Bible, in the Old Testament, the New Testament, everything that God sent down, everything that God created, you and me and the sun, the moon, the stars, they all have God's signature on them. The scriptures are mathematically composed, numerically structured, beyond human intelligence, so every statement in the Quran becomes proven with physical evidence. So when the Quran makes a statement, Moses threw down the staff and became a snake, this becomes a physical evidence proving it. Because it is mathematically composed by God Himself. It is authenticated by the mathematical composition that comes only from God, not from a human being. And God was an eyewitness there. God was an eyewitness who saw Moses throw down the staff and it became a snake, and He's telling us in a numerically structured statement. And the same is true with Jesus revived the dead. Every statement in the Quran is physically proven beyond doubt. So that's how, this is the fortune that we are not aware of. And this is how fortunate we are, in that we have now, you read the Quran and you have full confidence in everything it says, including many things that are unbelievable, like Moses throwing down the staff and having it turn into a snake. God says in the Quran in Surah 41 verse 53, I will increase my evidence. I will continuously increase my evidence until everyone believes that this is the truth. So when I'm going to talk to you today about the miracle of Quran again, because there's some new evidence that just came out confirming this statement of God that He would increase His evidence. So initially, we said that the first verse of Quran consisted of 19 letters, and the number of surahs, 114, is a multiple of 19. And they said, well, this is coincidence. This came out first. And then we found out that in Surah, in Q, there are 57 Qs. The only other Surah initiated with Q also had 57 Qs. 19 times 3, 19 times 3, 19 letters in the first verse, 19 times 6, the Quran surahs. And people said, coincidence. Then we found out that if you add these two, 57, you have 114. Q stands for Quran, 114 surahs, and they said, this is coincidence. They still continued to disbelieve. And then we said that this statement here, which is 19 letters, every word of it is found in the Quran in multiples of 19. The first word is 19 times, the second word 2,698 times, the third word 57 times, the fourth word 114 times. And they said, this is coincidence. So God kept increasing the evidence. And you know the rest. You know that the letter Nun in Surah Nun is 133, multiple 19. You know that we have, just to remind you of a few of those, so you will be the people who appreciate the Masjid Tucson miracle more than anybody else. There are 7 surahs initiated with Hamim, HM. 7 chapters constituting about 1/10 of the Quran. And you count these letters in the 7 chapters, and you have 2,147 of these letters in the 7 chapters. This is 19 times 113. If only one ha, one h, or one m was lost or added or substituted in the last 1,400 years, this will increase by 1, will decrease by 1, and the whole thing disappears. The whole thing collapses. So you can see the mathematical composition that is beyond human intelligence and has to be from God. The thing that gives you confidence that when Moses threw down the staff, it became a snake. It's like you're an eyewitness. You're just as good as an eyewitness, if not better. When Moses threw down the staff and became a snake, how many people saw that? Very few people who were inside the palace hall with Pharaoh. And how long did it last? A few minutes. And that was it. That was the end of it. The miracle happened. A few people saw it. It was over in a few minutes. But this miracle of Quran is continuous. Forever. It is perpetual. It is doing 2 things. It is a continuous miracle until the end of the world. And it confirms all those temporary miracles that were limited by time and space, like Jesus reviving the dead. How long did it take for Jesus to revive Lazarus? How many people saw Jesus revive Lazarus? But now we know, now we're witnessing that miracle now. Millions of people. By mathematically composed statements, authenticated by God Himself. We know that this is not man-made. God wrote that and was an eyewitness. So when this came out, they said, we don't believe it. I just received a review written by something Philip. Philip is the last name. It's not our Philip here. Some other Philip. And they finally admitted that there are 4 or 5 surahs that actually have multiples of 19. So what they admitted was the Q's. These are 57 in each of the few initial surahs. So that's 2 surahs. The end, in Surah 68, they said that yes, this is correct. The Yasin, YS, initial surah, Surah 19, KSYAS, 5 initials. What was the other surah? I think this is it. And they said this is not enough to establish a pattern. This pure coincidence. Okay, so they don't think. But at least, finally, they admitted that there is something here. About the HM surahs, they said, why is he adding them together? And they raised all kinds of strange questions. So, what you will see in the next issue, the Muslim perspective, not this one, not October, but November, is that it is obvious that God is increasing His evidence, just as He said in chapter 41, and that those people will continue to say, no, we don't believe, in order to expose and confirm the hardcore unbelievers who will end up in the lowest pit of hell. The reason I'm saying this is that Lisa yesterday found something else. This khutbah should be given by Lisa, by the way, but this fits in the mainstream of the... this is really profound, as you will agree. And if you want more details, you can ask her afterwards. There is something in the Muslim perspective of last month where let me get one of those Qur'an to explain to you what the need is. The preliminary information that you have is that 114 surahs in the Quran, 29 of them are initial, with the Quranic initials, A, L, M, Q, N, S, K, H, Y, and so on. This initial, 29 of them. The first initial, as you know, is in surah number 2, verse number 1. That says A, L, M. The first one is in surah number 2, verse 1. And the last one is the initial N in surah 68. Here it is. So, this part here of the book is what is between the first initial and the last initial. And what Isa found in the last issue, the Muslim perspective as published in that issue, was that between these two, the number of verses is a multiple of 19. 5,263 between the first initial and the last initial. It's a multiple of 19. 19 times 2, 7. Excluding the two false verses at the end of surah number 9. Also, between these, the first initial and the last initial, there are 19 groups of initial and uninitial surahs. In other words, surah 2 and 3 are initial, that's one group. Surahs 4, 5, and 6 are not initial, that's group number 2. You go on like this, it's 19 groups. So, what does this say? This piece of information says that the number of verses is a divine order dictated by God, because it conforms to the mathematical code. Also the sequence of surahs, because the initials, uninitials, and so on, they also make enough 19 groups. Now last night what we found was really profound, and has to do with this part here. Okay, now in the whole Quran, the word Allah is a multiple of 19. Allah is mentioned 2,698 times. And God chose to put the first initial in Surah 2, the last initial in Surah 68. So what she did is add up the number of the word Allah that happened here. Easier, she added the word Allah here in the smaller part. Surah Al-Fatiha before the ALM, and from 69, Surah 68, I'm smiling for a reason. Surah 68 has the letter N at the beginning. So counting the word Allah outside this came to 57. Allah. The word Allah outside. In this portion here. And in Surah Al-Fatiha. The two of them in Surah Al-Fatiha. Now, when she counted these verses, you count from ALM, verse 1 of Surah 2, to the letter N, verse 1 of Surah 68, and you stop. Because there are no initials after N. So the rest of Surah N is not counted in that. Because it's inclusive. Now, when you count the word Allah, in between here, the difference is 12641. You deduct this from the total number of Allah, which is also a multiple of 19, of course. But God knows that the people who look at this, what does this tell us? This tells us that the number of the verse is dictated by God. The number of the verse. And if you look at Yusuf Ali, you see that he changed the numbers because it sounded better to him. Because the numbering of the verses is strange in some places and he couldn't take it. So he played around with it. Now we wouldn't dare do that. And in spite of the things that happened in the last 1400 years, the Quran comes to us unscathed, with the numbers of the verses exactly right. I'm talking about the numbers of the verses and the numbers of the surahs, as you will see before the end of this khutbah. Okay, I was saying that when you count the verses, you start with the A and M and you end up with the N. So you have all of Surah 68 not counted in this because it is outside that range, verse-wise. So God knew that the unbelievers would say, why don't you count the words of Allah in Surah 68 also? And we did, or she did, and it is zero. In Surah 68, there's not a single word Allah. So, well, anyway they want to protest, God got their number, zero. The number is zero. So, I mean, it's really strange that the surah as big as Surah 68 does not have any words Allah in it. And I will complete this khutbah in the next section, inshallah. Tubu Allah repent. الحمد لله وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له. This is only a small part of the great miracle that was discovered yesterday, and I have been going around the world this morning to spread the news out of here, because some people started the rumor that only the initial chapters are guarded, but this shows that all the Quran is guarded. Because the word Allah is all over the place, as you know, thousands of them. And this portion here is outside the initial area, if you want to call it that. And within the initial area, we have 19 groups. Everything is so perfectly tight that there's no hole for the disbelievers to escape. And it is amazing that they continue to say, no, they continue to fail to see the miracle. Because God himself said in chapter 7, I will divert away from my miracles those who are too arrogant. And no matter what kind of miracle you show them, they will not see it. God said that. So, this is the explanation. Now listen to this. These 57 words, Allah, that are outside the initial, that are here. They happen in surahs and verses, certain surahs and certain verses. And when you add the numbers of the surahs and the verses where this happen, the total is 2432, 2432. And this is 19 times 1, 2, 8. Right. Now this is a big number. You add the numbers of the surahs and the verses where the word Allah occurs. And you're going to read this in the next issue of the perspective. Now what does this tell us? This tells the sequence of the surahs is dictated by God. The number of the surahs, the number of the verses where the word Allah takes place, where the word Allah occurs. And it is so magnificent because there are verses where more than one Allah, you find 1 or 2 or 3 Allah in one verse. But you cannot count the verse twice. So this system is so perfect. You have no doubt that you are reading the words of God right here. And when God says, I put guards on you, you know that there are guards on you. So you will not receive a scratch without God's control, without deserving it, or without a good reason for it. So sometimes God will mess up your life in order to have something good happen to you. Joseph had to go to prison in order to rule Egypt afterwards. He had to. So going to prison was equivalent to going to school and graduating with a degree. He graduated from the prison to rule Egypt. So even though the prison looked terrible, like a disaster, it was to promote Joseph to a good position. So when God says, I put guards on you, when God speaks throughout the Quran about invisible soldiers, you know that He runs this world with invisible soldiers. When God says that everything is written down before the earth was created. Everything is already recorded. What you're going to do next year is already recorded. How many kids you're going to have is already recorded. Who they are going to marry is already written down. What day and time and hour and place you're going to die is written down. Everything is written down because God says that. And God says, I'm telling you this so you don't feel sorry for the things you miss. And you don't get excited over the things you attain. You have, as the believer has an even keel. He or she doesn't get excited or depressed. Because everything is already recorded. There's nothing anybody can do. But He guarantees victory for His people. I mean, to the point, I'm going to read for you Psalm 91 again, which I read for you before. And these were mathematically authenticated too. David's Psalms. Now we have evidence that the whole scripture, talking about the original scripture, was mathematically authenticated. This Psalm happens to be confirmed in the Quran. When God says, I'll make you a king or queen on earth, you know that this is from God and you know that it is the absolute truth. When God tells you, I'm doing everything, you know this is the absolute truth. And when you pass the initial test and you worship God regularly and you do the 5 prayers, certainty will come to you. I'm smiling because this is something that we live every day. We lived it today. God was showing us that we are not doing anything. Even the words we utter. God is doing everything. And when He says this, you know that it is the absolute truth. Here is Psalm 91. Very quickly. You who dwell in the shelter of the Most High. This means every believer, talking to you. Who abide in the shadow of the Almighty. You've decided to join God. You abide in the shadow of the Almighty. Say to the Lord, my refuge and my fortress. This is what you said. You decide to tell God, my Lord, you're my refuge and my fortress. For He will rescue you from the snare of the fowler, from the destroying pestilence. With His pinions He will cover you. Under His wings you shall take refuge. His faithfulness is a buckler and a shield. One of God's name in the Quran is the faithful. When you tell God, I'm going to join you, I'm going to be with you, I'm going to believe your word, God is faithful to you, and He will fulfill His part of the promise. You happen to have no power, and He has all power. You can do nothing for God, but He can do everything for you. Okay, David goes on and says, with God's inspiration, you shall not fear the terror of the night, and the arrow that flies by day. You shall not fear the pestilence that roams in darkness, nor the devastating plague at noon. Though 1,000 fall at your side because of the AIDS disease. Oh, that's from me. I mean, it will not touch you. Though 1,000 fall at your side, 10,000 at your right side, near you it shall not come. This is what God is saying. These are God's words that He reveals through David. The Psalms were written by God through David's mouth to teach us. And you know every word in it is true. It is confirmed by the Quran and by this fantastic mathematical code whose parameters are increasing and the evidence is piling up beyond belief. Rather, with your eyes shall you behold and see the requital of the wicked. As a person of God, you're going to see that the people who are unjust to you, they're going to get it sooner or later. And the Quran repeats that even if you don't see it, they will get it. God will let you know. You know, they may persecute you until the last week of your life, and you may not see it. This is what the Quran says, whether you see it or not, you will get it. But if you're alive, you will see it. God will let you know. Because you have the Lord for your refuge, you have made the Most High your stronghold. When God controls Ronald Reagan, your boss, the president of your company is God, really. And He runs it. When the president of the company gives you a raise, God is really the one who did it. When God manipulates the president of your company. When the president of your company reprimands you, God is really doing that. He controls this man's or this woman's heart and mind. So because you have the Lord for your refuge, you have made the Most High your stronghold. No evil shall befall you, nor shall affliction come near your tent. You know that these words are God's words that are proven mathematically. You have confidence. Like this, Moses throwing down the staff and became a snake. Now you have confidence that this is the truth. Now you have tangible physical proof that this is true. And you better believe it. Now listen, this is how the mechanism is. Listen to this. For to his angels he has given command about you, that they guard you in all your ways. Upon their hand they shall bear you up, lest you dash your foot against the stone. You're going to carry you up like this on their hands, if you're going to dash your foot against the stone. You better believe that. God is saying it. It is proven mathematically. Lest you dash your foot against the stone. You're walking in the night, and there's a stone, you're going to hit it, you don't see it, and the angels will carry you, or will remove the stone. This is what God does. Everything in this world is done by angels. I mean by God, but I mean through his angels. Atum as-salam.
Joined in community of worship. One God.
الحمد لله وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له. We praise God and we bear witness that there is only one God. I would like to review with you very quickly the new issue of the Muslim perspective. As you know, we are witnessing the emergence of a fantastic miracle that tells the world this is a message from God to the world, that this is a supernatural scripture that could not possibly be human-made. And the evidence is accumulating and increasing in accordance with the verse in Surah 41 that says, "We will show them our miracles in the horizons and within themselves until they realize that this is the truth, until they give up." Unfortunately, our Muslim ulama are still stuck in the first letter of the Quran. In Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, they're still trying to figure out how many letters are in the Bismillah, the first verse. Only a couple of days ago, Kat met this fellow from Saudi Arabia, and he told her, "You go to that mosque over there?" And she said, "Yes, we have, and I will always go there. We have a proof that what the truth is, that the Quran is complete, perfect, fully detailed." And he said, "Is this based on the miracle of 19? And she said, "Yes." And he said, he started out denying that Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim is 19 letters. So she asked him to write it down. He wrote down 19 letters, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Then she asked him to count it. And this is what the Muslim ulama are doing. And he started counting invisible letters. She said what the computer sees, what your eye sees is what you count. How many letters do you see? So the miracles are overwhelmingly accumulating, and they're still stuck in the first letter. Ba, is Douglas's famous statement. They're still at the ba, because they want to figure out if there's an alif after the ba or not. Ironically, God wrote down the two words in the first revelation of Quran. You'll find Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, and right after it is Iqra Bism. And the two words, Bism and Bism, are spelled differently. One without the alif and one with the alif. And this is what got the Mufti of Yemen, who came here one time to argue with us. So, in this issue of the perspective, I'm listing the latest findings that Lisa found out last month, and I will mention them quickly. What we see in these miracles is confirmation of certain parameters of the Quran. Among the parameters of Quran are the verses, the number of verses, the numbers of verses, verse number 7 or 19 or 70, 71, whatever. The numbers of verses is the characteristic, a parameter of the Quran. The numbers of surahs and the sequence of surahs. Looks like this is what is being proven to the world now. Of course, a lot of them will not know it until 50 years from now. But at this time, it seems like God is revealing proof to tell us that the verses, the numbers of verses, the sequence of verses, the numbers of surahs, and the sequence of surahs are all dictated by God. They could not be human-made. The first Quranic initial Alif Lam Mim is in Surah 2, verse 1, and the last initial is Noon in Surah 68. And when you count the verses between these two, they are 5,263, a multiple of 19, the common denominator. 19, which means La ilaha illallah, or God is one. So this tells us that the number of verses is divinely dictated. Now, between the Alif Lam Mim and the Noon, there are 19 groups of surahs, initialed, uninitialed, initialed, uninitialed, 19 of them. There are 38, 19 times 2, uninitialed surahs. The word Allah occurs outside of this range, 57, which is 19 times 3, and the inside, it's 2,641, which is also a multiple of 19. 19 times 1, 39. And then when you take, now we have surahs where the word Allah occurs. There are surahs where there is not a single word Allah. But if you take the surahs where the word Allah occurs, well, this is a very special word. You take the surah number and the verses where the word Allah occurs and add them up, and the total is 2432, which is a multiple of 19. And this is only in the outside of the Alif Lam Mim and the Noon. We are working now on the inside. Hopefully we'll finish it this weekend. But this tells us that the sequence of surahs is dictated by God. We have here a table showing the surahs and verses where the word Allah occurs, and you can see for yourself. Anybody can. These are factual observations. It is not an opinion. It is nobody's opinion. So the ulama cannot say you don't have the right to interpret. There is no interpretation. These are factual observations on the Quran. And now, at the end of the article, I started to go through the historical development of the miracle and how, when the first items came out, they rejected it. And then the evidence intensified, increased, and they continued to reject it. And then they became arrogantly and stubbornly opposing it. And now it is pride and ego. They cannot agree with it anymore. But the evidence keeps piling and accumulating. And the idea, as I see it, is to confirm the hardcore disbelievers. Because the Quran says, سأصرف عن آياتي الذين يتكبرون في الأرض بغير الحق. I will divert from my revelations those who are too arrogant to accept my miracles or my revelations. وإن يروا كل آية لا يؤمنوا به. And no matter what kind of miracle they see, they will not believe in it. So this is to confirm that they deserve the lowest pit of hell. The evidence keeps increasing and they keep rejecting it until they're confirmed as hardcore disbelievers. Now, as you know, Ihsan has been with us for a few weeks now, and she's been doing a lot of research on the Quran. She's walking around on the counter, just counting the letters and words and so on. And she found something that again confirms that the verse numbers is dictated by God. When you look at the verse number, it says verse number 36, this number is assigned by God. She noticed, as all of you did, that Surah Al-Rahman number 55 has this word repeated in it. Ala, which means marvels. As you know, 31 times in Surah 55, God says, which of God's marvels can you deny? So she looked at this verse and she noticed, first of all, that there is a pattern. That this statement, which of your God's marvels can you deny? First, there is one odd-numbered verse, and then two even-numbered verses, and then three odd-numbered verses. These are the verse numbers where this statement occurs. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 even numbers verses, and then 17 odd numbers verses. So you can see that there is a deliberate pattern there. Okay, then she looked in the Quran for wherever this word occurs. There are two verses in Surah 7 that say, remember and reflect on God's marvels. There is also a similar statement in Surah 53, and the verse number is 55. You see the connection with Surah 55? The verse here is 55, the Surah is 53, and it says, which of God's marvels do you have doubts about? This is فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تَتَمَارَى. And this, رَبِّكُمْ تَتَمَارَى, and this is فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ. Okay, so what she did, this word occurs only in these surahs. So she added up the numbers of the surahs and the verses, and there is the total, a multiple of 19. So this tells you that this special statement, the numbers of surahs and verses, is dictated by God. It follows the pattern of 19. So she added all these numbers together, and the total is a multiple of 19. And she is as greedy as I am as far as this research is concerned. So she counted the letters in these verses. 114, each of these. 114 letters. God's marvels. That's another multiple of 19. And then she added the two statements, the letters in the two statements. This statement here, if you take one of them, it's 20 letters. Which, this is directed to the humans and the jinns. Which of God's marvels can you deny? It's 20 letters. And this verse here, where it says 55, in Surah 53, you notice there is a 55, 53. So you take this one, and they are 38 letters. 19 times 2. So the miracle is very tight and interlocking, and there is no escape for the people who keep denying it. So, looks like all the parameters of the Quran are going to end up with every single parameter confirmed as dictated by God. And if you read the books that they study in Azhar, for example, they go through all kinds of hypothetical situations where the divisions of surahs and verses may have been. But the fact is, you pick up the Quran anywhere in the world, and you find these verses, you find this statement, which of God's marvels can you deny? You find it in these surahs and these verses. In Japan, or in Sweden, or in Pakistan, the fact is, the Quran has these numbers, and they all conform to the miraculous mathematical code. To conclude, increasingly we see here that we have a book from God. When you read every word in it and you have 100% confidence that this is from God. And you can base your future and your life on it, as you will see in the next khutbah, inshallah. Tubu ilallah. الحمد لله وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له. In Surah 38, verse 67, there is a statement that says, proclaim that it is a momentous event that you are disregarding. So proclaim to the people the momentous, the great event. قُلْ هُوَ نَبَأٌ عَظِيمٌ. Say or proclaim it is a momentous or a great event, أَنْتُمْ عَنْهُ مُعْرِضُونَ, that you are disregarding. The average person in the street is going about his or her life totally unaware of the great event. The great event is a universal conference, the day of resurrection, when the people of the past, present, and future will be resurrected and will be assigned a job or a position, if you will, for eternity. And every one of those people should be thinking about that. What is the position that will be assigned to them for eternity in the real life? Are they going to be assigned, is it going to be a garbage collector forever? There's nothing wrong with garbage collecting here to make a living. But forever? Is he going to be an engineer or a pilot or a doctor or a lawyer, using terms of this world? That is the great event that they are totally disregarding and they're totally unaware of it and totally unprepared. Here in this world, they go to school for umpteen years to get a degree to qualify for a good job. For how long? 30 years? 20 years? 50 years? So this is our school for the eternal life. And so how much credits are they accumulating in preparation for that assignment, for that eternal job? There will be people going there into eternal life with 0 credits. They didn't go to school at all. And there will be grade school dropouts. And there will be high school dropouts and college dropouts and college graduates and graduate students and PhDs. Depending on how much credit you accumulate here. So when we wake up every morning, we have to ask, today, I'm going to accumulate credit for this world, so many credits, X credits. How many I'm going to get for the real life, for the eternal life? We accumulate credit by sitting here. Now we are collecting credit. Your record is going to have the Friday prayers, which is a commandment from God. You go to the Friday prayer and drop all business. And God promises immediately after that He'll make it up to you, money-wise or earning-wise. If you drop all business and come to the Friday prayer, God says He'll provide for you a lot more and much better here in this world. And by the way, the credits that you accumulate here, they help you here. You remember last time I read for you from Psalm 91, where God says He gives word to His angels to carry you, lest you dash your foot against a stone. So it happens here. You remember I read for you from Luke 12:29 that you seek God's kingship over you and the rest will follow automatically. And the rest meaning health, wealth, happiness. Happiness you don't know where it's coming from. Emanates from your inside. And you're like an artificially intoxicated person that is alcohol intoxicated. Because the real intoxication is God's intoxication. Where you are laughing and happy regardless of what is happening. The earthquake killed 2 million people in Tucson and you're happy and joyous. So, understanding the events that happen in the world and why the earthquakes happen. But the happiness is an internal feeling that only God controls, nobody else. And there is false happiness that does not last, and there is real happiness that lasts. So you benefit from the credits here in this world, and this is a big mistake that most people out there make. They think that they have to wait until the day of judgment to cash in the credits. You start cashing it right now. So every morning we have to ask ourselves, how many credits do I want? The 5 daily prayers are the credits that you collect daily in your record. So we really have to consciously ask, is our record going to be empty of credits or full? Because that will decide your position for eternity. Proclaim that it is a great event, a momentous event that you, the people, are disregarding. You are totally unaware of it. Akim Salah. الحمد لله وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له The idea of mathematical composition of literature is an original idea. It's a new idea. And it is monopolized by God alone. This is mathematical composition of literary works. If you go to the library and look at millions of books, you will not find one that is mathematically composed. The idea is not known in human-made books. And the Quran is the only book in the world that is mathematically composed and is intact. There have been fragments of mathematically composed materials like liturgies and small pieces of the original scripture. But the Quran is the only book in the world that's mathematically composed. And the idea of mathematical composition is that everything is calculated, the words, the letters, the verses, the chapters. I can ask you to write a book where chapter 2 contains 500 S's, for example. This is a mathematical composition because you'll get to chapter 2 and you will write and count the S's and keep track of them. So you'll end up with 500 S's in chapter 2. So this is the simplest form of mathematical composition. This can be made difficult by adding more specifications. Chapter 2 has 500 S's and chapter 6 has 300 H's and 200 R's. For example, it then becomes more difficult. You have to keep track of more things as you write. And as you write, you have to make up sentences that make sense and serve a purpose. It's not just calculations. It's two important things. So the Quran is the only book in the world today that is mathematically composed. And this is why I'm kind of monopolizing the khutbah these days. You may have to bear with me one more time. But I'm giving this khutbah on behalf of Sister Ihsan Ramadan. She made some significant discoveries that you have in front of you, and they're really profound. What is happening these days is a concentration on the parameter of the numbers assigned to the verses in the Quran. Are these haphazard? Were they made by men? Was it just somebody said, let us give this number 6 and this number 7, and they divided the verses haphazardly? And the message that's coming loud and clear is no. These numbers are assigned by God. So let me, the first I reported some new findings to you last week. The thing that Hassan found this morning, was it this morning or last year? I'm losing track of time. I think it is this morning. It's been very exciting in the office here, and you can see that my breath is taken away. It is breathtaking. One of the most important worships in Islam is Salat. Salat, connection between the creature and the Creator, something that we practice. And this seems to be the most important thing for any human being. The Jews and the Christians, we know from Quran, lost it. In Surah 19, by the way, the verse says that generations came after Moses and Jesus that lost the contact prayer, which means they lost the combination. This is Ihsan's own words. They lost the combination to the safe. So they couldn't make contact. And the consequence is given in the same verse. Therefore, they will suffer immensely. Because they lost the contact. Imagine being in this sizzling pan called the world, and these contact prayers are the ropes that keep you out of the sizzling pan. If you don't make this contact, you are burning, and this sizzling, you're suffering the pains and problems. Okay, the word salat in Quran, contact prayer, this signifies its importance. If you look at the small sheet here, what we did was add the surahs and the verses where the word salat occurs in the whole Quran. And the total is circled in red, 4674. 4,674. It's a very big number. It's a very big number, which means if there was one verse that came to us 32 instead of 31, for example, from God. In other words, God assigned the number 31, and somebody in 1400 years changed it to 32, we will not have this. Will not be divisible, because this is a multiple of 19. 19 times 246. These are the numbers of the surahs and the numbers of the verses. And any discrepancy, this is the ultimate in scientific proof. Mathematics is very sensitive. 76, for example, is a multiple of 19, but not 77 and not 75. And the larger the number, the more huge the odds that this is haphazard. So you understand this one here. Now, the word Quran. You take the word Quran, it's a very important word. And at the top of the page, what you see are the numbers of verses throughout Quran where the word Quran occurs. And you take those verses, the numbers of the verses, and add them up, as you see here. If you look at the top of the page, it says ready, and then the number 10, this is the number of the line, A equals 185 is the first verse where the word Quran happens. It's in Surah 2, verse 185. Plus 82. 82 is the second verse where the word Quran happens. And this is in Surah, probably Surah 4. And so on. So we added up all the verses where the word Quran takes place. And the total is 2660 equals 19 times 140. Now, listen to this. The word Quran happens in the Quran 58 times. 58 is not a multiple of 19. But one of these is in Surah 10, where God says, every time you show the Quran to the disbelievers, they say, give us a Quran other than this. So it is not this Quran. So the word the Quran, this Quran of God, it happens 57 times, which is 19 times 3. And this total does not include that verse that says a Quran other than this. So you can see the accuracy and the intricacy of this. This is not human made. Now, the word Quran, of course, it happens a number of times in certain surahs. How many surahs? The word Quran in every shape, form, or grammatical shape is found in 38 surahs. 19 times 2. If you add the number of surahs where the word Quran happens, and the number of verses, the total of the verses where the Quran takes place, the total is 2,698. 19 times 142. Does this number ring a bell? Anybody? Katul. Exactly. This is the name. The word Allah occurs in the Quran, this total, 2,698. The evidence is piling up, and at this rate the world will end tomorrow. I mean, something is happening. At this rate of the evidence piling and the showing that we have a book from God. Tubu ila Allah, repent. الحمد لله وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له. Like I said, I'm going to talk on behalf of Ihsan. She mentioned some idea today. She said, if you're driving and the traffic light is turning from green to yellow to red, and you're driving very fast and you're contemplating, shall I cross or stop? And then, very quickly, you notice a police car standing there at the intersection. What will you do? You're going to stop. Let's finish the contemplation. It's done. You're going to stop. So, Ihsan made an invention, a terrible invention. It's a terrible invention. He invented a machine that will electronically ticket you, whether the police is there or not. If you cross at the wrong time, there's an electronic machine there that will give you a ticket. Now what will you do? You will stop. You see, and the people who believe in God know that God is with them, closer to them than their jugular vein, and therefore they know that every time they make a mistake, there's an electronic machine that will give them a ticket. Now, are the people, do they believe in the police, or do they believe in God? They believe that God is with them, and they will know that anytime they make a mistake, they'll get a ticket, and there will be the time to pay those tickets. There is a verse in Surah 68 that says, on the day of judgment, every human being will be invited, because it's a privilege, will be invited to fall prostrate before God when He comes to this world. But the people who did not make sujood here, in this world, will not be able to make sujood over there. And the Quran says they were invited to make sujood when they were able to. So this adds to the importance of the salah. For if you make sujood here, you'll be able to make sujood there. Finally, there's a psalm that I'd like to read for you. I had the khutbah marking it. Psalm 62 says, trust in God alone. Only in God is my soul at rest. From Him comes my salvation. He only is my rock and my salvation, my stronghold. I shall not be disturbed at all. How long will you set upon a man with all together, and all together beat him down, as though he were a sagging fence, a battered wall? That's if you put your trust in men, in humans, instead of God. Though he were a sagging fence and a battered wall, truly from my place on high, they plan to dislodge me. They delight in lies. They bless with their mouths, but inwardly they curse. Only in God be at rest my soul, for from Him comes my hope. He only is my rock and my salvation, my stronghold. I shall not be disturbed. With God is my safety and my glory. He is the rock of my strength. My refuge is in God. Trust in Him at all times, O my people. Pour out your heart before Him. God is our refuge. Atum as-salam.